Hello, everyone. Now, I don't normally comment on Middle East politics at all because I know people have very, very strong opinions about the Middle East on both sides. But when it spills out beyond the Middle East and starts to affect things in the wider world, then I do comment on things. And that is what's happened at the moment with Roger Waters, who is the lead lyricist of Pink Floyd, or was the lead lyricist and songwriter for Pink Floyd. But he still goes on today and does shows and concerts all over the world, as he has done for 40 years or so. And at the moment, he's doing a tour with a concert and a show called The Wall. Now, all of a sudden, after doing this show, the same thing for years and years and years, there's a sudden global pile-on after he did a show in Berlin, which was exactly the same as the shows he's done in many other places. And this global pile-on is accusing him of being anti-Semitic or using anti-Semitic tropes. And this week in the House of Commons in the UK, MPs have stood up to condemn him and tried to get his gig in Manchester Arena next week cancelled. So what is something concerning the Middle East has spilled out now and is feeding into cancel culture in the UK. But it's not just people in the UK who have commented about him. Obviously, he's from the UK. Pink Floyd is a British band. But the EU has come out to condemn Roger Waters as using anti-Semitic tropes. And so has the Biden regime in the White House in the USA, and many, many media outlets around the world, and NGOs such as the Anti-Defamation League and the Board of Deputies of British Jews. So we have media organizations, NGOs, MPs, governments around the world, all of a sudden condemning this man and trying to smear him as an anti-Semite. I do not believe he is anti-Semitic. I'm not going to comment on his views on the Middle East. He has certain views. I think the situation is more complex than what he's saying, so I'm not going to comment on that. I have different views of my own. I don't speak about them because I'm concerned myself with the UK. But this pile-on, why suddenly now, after he's done the same thing for years and years and years, is there a mass full spectrum smear of Roger Waters? It doesn't make any sense. The rationale for this is that he dresses up as a German officer of the Second World War, which he doesn't. He dresses up in a leather jacket with an armband with two hammers on it. It's not a symbol from that time. It's something different. He's also been accused of conflating Anne Frank with Shireen Abu Akleh, an Al Jazeera journalist who was killed in an active zone in Israel. He flashes their names on the screen in his concert with some other names. The point he's trying to make, and I've listened to his defense of his show, is that he is against all tyranny, all totalitarianism, all fascism, everywhere, okay, which is his view. And he has the free speech, or he should have the freedom of speech to say, I think this person was unjustly killed. I think that person was unjustly killed. I think that person was unjustly killed. That's fine. That's freedom of expression. But this is now being attacked on the basis that he's anti-Semitic. I don't think that NGOs who are smearing him, and it seems to be originating with these certain NGOs, that are trying to smear him as anti-Semitic are going to do themselves or the people they represent any favours at all by accusing someone of anti-Semitism when there isn't any. I've been accused of that myself by certain journalists and certain commentators on social media because I regularly talk about cultural Marxism, which is a real phenomenon. But whenever I speak about it, I get accused by somebody somewhere of using an anti-Semitic trope. Even when I say globalism, I was at the protest in Oxford about 15-minute cities, and someone pretended they wanted a friendly conversation, but it soon became clear that they wanted to bait and switch me, make a sort of bear trap that I'd fall into while a friend across the road filmed them. And she very quickly started accusing me of saying, globalism, that's an anti-Semitic trope. You know, you shouldn't use that language. Well, I can say globalism if I want. That's not anti-Semitic. It is the ideology and the practice of trying to form a global government and undermine freedom and democracy in individual nation states that is clearly going on. So I've got every right to talk about it and also to fight against it, because I do not want a global government. I want my nation to continue existing along with all the other nations, and for those nations to increase freedom and democracy, not to undermine them. So I've got every right to talk about that, and I will continue to talk about cultural Marxism, which originated in the 1920s, and it's the refocus of Marxist praxis from the economy to the culture, as espoused by Gramsci and Horkheimer and Adorno and other Marxists in the 20s that have gone on up to today. And Roger Waters, I don't agree with him on everything, but he should have the freedom of expression to talk about tyranny in the way that he sees it, and to fight against tyranny and oppression in the way that he sees it. He's even been accused of saying his shows are a vehicle for him to express his political views. Well, why not? Of course. What's wrong with that? I mean, he's completely and entirely entitled to express his political views, and then people can say whether they agree with that or not. But he shouldn't be cancelled for it. And the very big danger here and the very big warning sign is when you see you have the globalist centre-left, the globalist centre-right in this country, the Labour Party and the fake Conservative Party together are calling for him to be cancelled. The Biden regime, another globalist outfit, the MSM, and a number of NGOs who support restrictions on freedom of speech on the basis that we need to stop hate, as it were. You know, this concept of hate that's got into law that shouldn't be there is something which has been weaponized by all the different groups in all the different fields that want to undermine free speech. And they need to be totally refuted, and we need to stand up for someone's freedom of expression when they're not breaking any laws and they're not inciting violence. He's just putting his opinion across with his art, which is what artists do. You know, are we going to say that nobody is allowed to be a musician if they have a political opinion, even if you don't agree with them? So that's absolutely wrong. So this is just a bizarre pile on that. So they've decided to target Roger Waters this week. But it could be someone else next week, and it could be someone else next week in a completely different field. So I just want to put that out there, because even though I don't agree with all of what he says, he's not doing anything that he hasn't done for years and years and years. And it just needs to be said that the pile on seems to be people who are just using this as an opportunity to virtue signal in the wrong direction And if this is not challenged, this will lead to his gigs being cancelled, which will set a precedent. And then this also will feed into, in the UK, the online safety bill, which is going through Parliament at the moment, where the government is trying to introduce legislation where they can control what people say on the internet, and they can cancel people on the internet if they think that someone is spreading hate or misinformation or disinformation. And so it totally feeds into that. And with this legislation going through in the UK, it isn't just going to affect the UK, it's going to affect the entire world, because the UK is a central hub point for the internet. Just like, you might have New York and Los Angeles, and I don't think any apart from the USA, the UK, there's no other country which is more important for communications around the globe than the UK. So with this legislation going through, it will affect social media companies all over the world, because they will start to write their policies and change their practices in order to comply with UK law, as they already do to comply with US law and EU law. It's what social media companies have to do to stay operative. So this, I think, is just an excuse, something which people have picked up, and they say, we're going to make an example of this guy, and then that shows that we need legislation to give the state more control over what people say. And while they all say that they're for free speech, they're acting in a way which is completely detrimental to it. And so this is what's going on, and this needs to be challenged, and we need to stand up for Roger Waters' freedom of expression, whether we totally agree with him or not.